Hello! Welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my finished projects, works in progress, things I'm cooking, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes that you find some inspiration along the way. Welcome to January 2022. It is the first week of January. It is snowing today. It is very windy, but it actually doesn't feel too cold outside. I think because recently we've also had some even colder weather, like minus 27 degrees Fahrenheit with the wind. And so when it's only, minus 4 degrees with the wind, it just doesn't feel as cold, I guess. It's all relative to what you are feeling. I think it's been about 2 weeks since I last recorded, and there has been lots and lots of baking. I typically bake and cook a lot anyway, but over winter break I did even more so and tried some new recipes, and I will have had that footage just prior to us sitting down to chat, so hopefully you enjoyed that little video montage of some cooking and some knitting. The recipes to some of the items that I had shown will be in the description box below, as well as any designers, makers, patterns, things like that that I talk about throughout the episode. So always check out that description box. Sometimes you need to click on show more or read more or something like that to expand the box to show all the information there. I do also have Ravelry project pages, but those will be listed separately. And the designers that I talk about, I try to link to their websites so that you can find all the information that you need from there. I do have a lot to talk about today. If you've been watching this for a while or even know me in person, I am someone that talks pretty quickly. I can't help it. I just talk fast. And if I get excited about something, I talk even faster. I've always been like this, even as a kid, and it's just how I am. I have tried to talk slower as far as public speaking goes. One of, I think, my main criticism always sounds so harsh, but feedback maybe is to speak slower. I don't always remember to do that when I'm recording these episodes, but I will do my best to try to slow down a little bit. YouTube does allow you to speed up or slow down videos. I don't know if you know that, but I think it's in like the bottom right corner. You can play back the video at like 0.75 speed if it's going too fast, or even slower. I actually tend to watch most of the knitting like podcasts and videos that I watch on 1.25 speed. I don't know, it's just how I process information. So not like trying to get through something quicker or anything like that. Sometimes it is, because if you have young children at home, sometimes your time is limited. So sometimes I do watch them faster for that reason, but a lot of times it's just how I process information. So feel free to adjust the speed setting as you watch my videos, but I am trying to make a conscious effort to slow down a little bit so that I can say what's in my brain before my brain trips over my words, or vice versa, things like that. So my videos are fully captioned, so if the sound part doesn't work for you, or whatever the case may be, you can click on that CC button and the captioning will show up. YouTube does do the auto captioning, but then I go in and edit so that things make sense. Sometimes what I say doesn't translate to text very well, and so I need to go in and edit that so that it makes sense. I remember, at least personally for me, when my babies were really little and I would be stuck on the couch somewhere nursing or something like that, or nap trapped from like a toddler stuck on top of me, I would want to watch some videos to pass the time, and I wouldn't want to have the sound on to potentially wake my kid, and so I would definitely turn on the captioning. So that's how I end up using captioning in videos. But yeah, so today I have several finished projects to share with you. It has been about 2 weeks, maybe a little longer than 2 weeks, and yeah, there's been a lot of making going on, and I do have some works in progress to share with you that I'm not sure if I've shared all of them on Instagram yet. I don't think I have, and definitely haven't shown like my most recent progress on them, so that'll be exciting to share with you and chit chat about today. I have lots of different thoughts about different things, and depending on whether those thoughts stay in my head or not, I will be talking about them here. Sometimes things like flit away out of my brain. I don't know about you, but yeah, that happens to me. I do try to write things down so that I remember to talk about them, but I don't always remember to refer to my notes. I don't always remember exactly all the things that I wanted to talk about. Sometimes I think about things at night and I don't get up to write them down, so by the time the sun comes up, sometimes I don't remember anymore, but it happens, right? In my mug today, I have hot ginger tea, which is so nice on a cold day. I have hot water, and it's basically that ginger syrup that I was talking about. I don't know if it was in the most recent episode or 2 episodes back, but I had made a bunch of ginger syrup to just have in the fridge. I can add it to tea, I can add it to whatever, and yeah, it's keeping me warm today. I think the first thing I wanted to talk about today before we jump into like finished projects, works in progress, things like that. Oh, and just a side note, I do put in timestamps in the description box below for the show notes that indicate like different sections. I feel like it helps, at least it helps me when I'm trying to go back and look at something or look for something, but also if I'm not watching a video all in one sitting, I kind of like to know what chapters basically there are in a video, and yeah, so that's in the description box below as well. Lots of information there. I am very detail oriented, if you couldn't tell. It is, again, just how I am. So the first thing I actually wanted to talk about was the word worth and what it means. I've just been thinking about it a lot lately, and in a lot of different ways, like thinking about, are things worth it to me? And that may change from day to day and from subject to subject. I've been thinking about when people talk about their value and what their time is worth, what their makes are worth, what just value, I guess, yeah, value. And part of me got thinking about when people say that they're working or they're, I guess, assigning value to work, right? And I was thinking of it in terms of like volunteer work, right? So if you are volunteering for something, you're still putting in time and energy and a lot of times your own money into whatever it is that you're volunteering for. And what's the value assigned to volunteering, and do you call it work? So let's put it into a more tangible example. So I do quite a bit of test knitting. Now, for those who aren't familiar with test knitting, what that means is a lot of times designers or independent designers, they have a piece that they write up, a pattern, and they need various testers to try out the pattern in the many different sizes that they've graded or different options, because there's no way they're going to knit potentially all 12 options or sizes or whatever the case may be. So they need testers to also like read through their pattern to make sure it makes sense to them and provide feedback. And a lot of these tests are volunteer based, so you apply and you may or may not be assigned to a size, and then you provide your own materials, so your own tools, your own yarn. Sometimes there is a collaboration with a particular yarn dyer, so they may or may not give a discount if you want to use their yarn. A lot of times designers leave it up to you for what yarn you want to use. And So that's money, right? Put into it on your own. And then the time that you take to make the project may vary from person to person, but that's, again, time that you put in. And if you say time is money, then that's money, right? And this is all volunteer, right? So you're signing up to do it. No one's telling you have to or anything like that. A lot of times, you're learning stuff along the way. Maybe some test knitting groups some test knits are run in a group. So it's almost like a mini knit along. You get to ask the designer questions and, knit with other people doing the same designs. Other test knits are not run that way. It's more independent. You kind of do your own thing and you can email the designer if you have questions. They're just all run a little bit differently. So again, this all comes back to it being volunteer. Now, do you consider that work? And what's the difference, right? Is work only if you're being paid, whereas volunteer, you're not being paid and you're putting more, well, if we're just talking about pay, money-wise, you are putting in the money, right? Instead of being paid to do that work. I see my test knitting as a way to give back to the community and to designers that I respect and I want to work with, and I want to see them succeed, and I want to see their patterns come to life. And I do consider it work because it's a commitment, there's a deadline, and though I am providing my own time, energy, money into these projects that I am willingly test knitting for these designers, I still do consider it work. So for me, even though it's volunteer, that's like work knitting, right? Not necessarily personal knitting. Now I'm making things in sizes that I will wear or gift or things like that, and I won't sign up for something that I can't see myself enjoying the process or being able to use the item at the end. I have mentioned in the past I am a product maker, so I am drawn to projects based on the end result. I have to see a purpose for it. I have to see, like if it's a garment, does that silhouette work for me? Am I going to need to purchase materials or do I have materials on hand? Like these are questions I ask myself before I apply for a test knit, because if I can't check off enough boxes for a yes, then I pass. Like that maybe is just not the best option for me. Because again, I'm putting in my time, money, energy into it, and I need to make sure that I think it's worth it. So anyway, it's just some food for thought. I think that when people value their time and value their creative energy, that we think maybe more intentionally about how we use it. And I do consider my test knit efforts as work knitting, and I do dedicate time to it. And since those have deadlines, because your designer is depending on you to provide feedback and have a product at the end, and a lot of them are actually are relying on you for marketing as well. I mean, they don't have the budget for marketing, and so when you are sharing posts on Instagram and social media about your makes, you are providing marketing for this designer. And I will add in a little tidbit here of something that is a pet peeve of mine, and this is not to like berate any specific designers or anything like that. This is just kind of a throwing this note out there, since we're talking about worth and value and things like that, is when a designer says, oh, I'm going to give you a free pattern out of this, like a free pattern, of the one that you're testing, it isn't really free. Like you worked for it and you helped make that pattern come to life by testing it. So don't have it sound like it's devaluing the work you're providing as a tester to have them say that you're getting a free pattern out of it, because you're not. I mean, that makes it sound like you're working for free, which you are, but you aren't. I don't know. Does that make any sense? It's just, it's in wording. Like if a designer were to say, here is a complimentary pattern as a thank you for testing my pattern or whatever, that to me is different. That to me is saying they're like acknowledging the work and the time that you've put into helping their pattern come to life, and it's like a small way for them to say thank you. But versus saying like, lucky you get a free pattern, it's like, yeah, I don't know about that. So there you go. All right, I got a little hot, so I had to put all my hair up, and I took off my shawl, and I'll talk about that later. But we are going to talk about some finished projects now. Do you have your beverage? I have a lot to talk about. So the first one I'd like to share is the one that I am wearing. I shared a work in progress, like chit chat about it, I think in the last episode, but I am so excited about this sweater. This is the watercolored pullover by Tiff Nealon, and I'm testing this pattern. I believe it's coming out maybe in a week, but middle of January, somewhere in there, I think. So just keep an eye out on her Instagram. She also has a newsletter, which she uses to communicate with subscribers, so that's a good place to be if you want to kind of have a heads up on what patterns she has coming out and discount codes and things like that. So I knit the size 2. Tiff's patterns are always size inclusive. This one has a finished circumference of 36 inches, which gives me about 4 inches of positive ease. I knit mine using Knit Picks Wool of the Andes in their bulky weight. It was my first time trying the Wool of the Andes yarn, which is 100% non-superwash Peruvian, 100% Peruvian Highland wool. I don't think I have the information for it in here. You know, I might have already put away all my yarn stuff for that, but it is a bulky weight yarn, and since there's color work, I really wanted to try it in a non-superwash. Non-superwash yarn just is toothier, and then the yarns next to each other kind of grab a hold of each other more, which gives you a more maybe smooth or cohesive fabric. And it is also very budget friendly. I can't remember how much it was, but I bought it on sale. Let me see if I can find the information real quick here. I can tell you the retail price for it. I believe when I bought it, it was like 20% off or something even, which made it even more price friendly. So yeah, Wool of the Andes bulky here at 100 grams, it is $6.99 US. When I bought it on sale, it was less than that. And I love how it worked out. It's a drier feel than superwash, and it is not itchy at all. Now, I wouldn't say I have particularly sensitive skin, and I also don't have a ton of experience knitting with non-superwash wools, so I can't really compare too much, but I will say it definitely softened up after the first wash, and it blocked out really nicely. I love the stitch definition on this, and my color work turned out really nice. So again, this is the bulky weight, so it was 137 yards for 100 grams, and the dark green I used is the colorway Lumberjack. The fuchsia magenta color is Fairy Tale, and the light gray is Gosling. I'm going to get a little closer so you can see it better. So it is a top-down, in the round colorwork yoke, and she has options, I believe, for the body length. I'm gonna get on my knees here so you can see a little better. I knit what she's calling the standard length. So the top of my hip is here, above where the hem starts. And I really like this length. I have it actually worn over a linen dress right now, and the pockets start kind of right where the hem ends. So that works out really well for me. I would say for those who like a longer sweater, you could probably add a little bit more to the body length. And then she has a cropped length as well. And I think she has an option for a fold over neckline. So you would just knit, you know, more of the ribbing and then fold it in on itself to be a little more structured maybe on the top. I will say that this neckline is slightly wide, but I will most likely always wear something underneath. I usually do with my sweaters, either a thin long sleeve base layer or a thin short sleeve base layer, or I've worn it with a collared shirt underneath, which I really liked. I will pop a picture of that here on the screen. I knit this as my Christmas sweater and I finished it in time, and I had a plaid button-up shirt underneath. So I feel like sometimes if the neckline is too close in, the collar of a button-up shirt underneath won't sit right. It'll just be like too much around my neck. So it actually worked out really well for me. I wanted to talk about also why I chose the non-superwash. Oh, hold on, back up. So another reason I wanted to use non-superwash for this sweater is because it is bulky weight. I knew that if I used 100% superwash merino, that it was going to be heavier and potentially stretch out. Just from experience in the past, I feel like sleeves, if I'm going to knit long sleeves, like this one, I knit her a longer cuff option, which I love, because if it's going to be a bulky weight sweater, I'm wearing it because I want to be warm. And if I want to be warm, I don't want something shorter where my wrists are going to be freezing or whatever the case may be. Plus, a longer cuff means that if I wanted them out of the way, I can fold them up. Now what was I saying before I got onto the cuffs? Oh, the weight. So because it is a bulky weight sweater, I wanted something that wasn't going to like pull down on my shoulders and make the neckline even bigger or just have too much drape. I wanted there to be a little more structure since it is a bulky weight sweater and I was knitting full-length sleeves. So non-superwash yarns tend to not stretch out like superwash yarns do, and so far, I mean, with my little experience knitting with non-superwash yarns, I feel like that is so true. And it has made me think that with future sweaters that I make, I might want to, I won't say always, but I think I will heavily consider non-superwash yarns for sweaters. I will also use knit picks, I think, because I didn't have to alternate skeins like you might do for indie dyed yarns to either break up any pooling from the dyeing process or different skeins, even if they're from the same dye lot. Sometimes the color doesn't always match up. I didn't have to worry about that at all with this yarn from Knit Picks, and I really liked that. It is not hard to alternate skeins. It is not hard to like do any of that, but it was really nice not to. And yeah, so I think for future sweaters, I will heavily consider the non-superwash option, which Knit Picks has lots of non-superwash options, not just bulky. I will show you later a project that I'm working on that is Wool of the Andes worsted weight, and that is also non-superwash 100% Peruvian Highland wool, and I'm loving how that's coming up too. So just something to consider. Plus, it is more budget friendly. When you're using yarns for a sweater, you need more than, you know, if you're knitting socks or something like that, and so it can really add up quickly. And for someone who does quite a bit of test knitting, I just feel like if I want to continue doing that, I also need to do it in a way that's sustainable for me. So does that mean I'll never use indie dyed yarn again? No, not at all. It just means I will look at my options and evaluate my choices, like best choices for a particular project. And if there's color work, I mean, I could still use special or more expensive yarn for a color work portion that doesn't use up as much yardage, but like for the body where there may be more sections of just stockinette, using a more budget-friendly yarn can be a great option. Plus, you don't have to alternate skeins, so and deal with pooling or color changes or anything. Yeah, that was just really nice. I'm gonna just go a little closer so you can see how nice that fabric is. Now I've worn this a few times so far. When we went ice skating at the park I think I have footage of that in the beginning too. I had this on over my long down jacket and that kept me so warm. I loved that my wrists weren't cold. Now I had mitts on too, but yeah, I really don't like cold wrists. I really don't like cold neck or cold ears. I mean, I guess there's a lot of cold spots that I don't like, but yeah, so this kept me nice and toasty. It was such a nice layer to have with all of the wind and the cold. I think that day it was like 9 degrees Fahrenheit maybe. And we weren't out for super long, maybe an hour or two or so, and then I ended up having to go sit in the car because my toes were getting cold. And I've had like frostbite issues in the past, and yeah, it's just not fun. So I think that's all I have to say about this pattern. Yeah, so keep an eye out for it. The next finished project I would like to share with you is my half and half triangles wrap. This is my deep autumn version. I'm gonna hold it up so you can see it. This is a free pattern by Pearl Soho. You've heard me talk about it since I started my first one in July of 2021. And so my first one was called Autumnal Winter, and I knit that in rose granite and rosewood pink. And then I started this one on the fall equinox, and I named this one Deep Autumn, and the colors for this one are chestnut red, and I think it's a deep iris, dark iris, and chestnut red. And I just love these colors together. The iris one has a little bit of the red in it, so it's got a heathered look to it. I'm gonna hold it up real close. And then I feel like the red is kind of a brownish red. And the yarns are Pearl Soho's Linen Quill, and that is a 50% fine Highland wool, 35% alpaca, 15% linen. That adds up to 100, right? Yes, it does add up to 100. And okay, I think you've heard me talk about this in the past, but in case you're new here or just don't remember, Pearl Soho's pattern comes in 2 sizes. There's a small and a large. The small is a 190 stitch cast on, the large is a 260 stitch cast on. In the pattern, it recommends that you buy 3 100-gram skeins of each color, so that's 6 skeins total. For my first one, I cast on the large. I used the US 3 needles as recommended. I think when I blocked out my wrap, it blocked out a little bit bigger even than what the pattern stated. And I did not use much of the 3rd skein. I think I ended up only using maybe 20 something grams of the 3rd skein. And the skeins that I've received have all been over 100 grams to start. So I think close to like 105 or something. So I wanted to know if I could get away with doing 2 skeins per color, which saves money, you don't have as much remaining, and I could still find myself using it at a size that just might be slightly smaller than the large. So I cast on 230 stitches and it worked. It worked just fine. I ended up using, let's see, 193 grams of dark iris, which was my first color, and 196 grams of chestnut red, which was my second color. So it came out perfect. And I ended up having, let's see, 22 grams of the purple left and 14 grams of the red left, which is just what I wanted because I am saving up any yarns remaining from half and half triangles wraps to knit a striped sweater. And I'm so happy with it. So part of the way, I think I weighed my yarn before and after X number of stitches. I can't really remember. And then in an Excel sheet, I mapped out each row, which you work twice because of how the short rows work. And then I could kind of guess how many grams I would use by the time I got to X row or something like that. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly, but anyway, I'm not going to be sharing that Excel sheet with anybody because your gauge may vary and mine may not be completely accurate either. It is just a guesstimate and it works for me. But again, I'm not going to be sharing it because I'm not going to be like dealing with like troubleshooting or whatever. I'm just letting you know that that is what worked for me. So I cast on 230 stitches and I ended up, let's see, what did I do differently from the pattern? I did German short rows instead of wrap and turns because that is my short row method of choice. And then in the pattern it has you just have like a garter edge, but I slipped the last stitch so that it's a little bit, I don't know, it looks tidier to me, but I don't think it really matters. It's just personal preference. And this is what the center looks like with the German short rows. And I did end up blocking this, and I think I blocked out to maybe the same size as what the large is stated in the pattern. And yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say. Oh, I do have one more thing. For the bind off, I just do a regular traditional bind off. I don't know if it's called a traditional bind off, but I just do a regular bind off. But in my right hand, I hold a US 6 double pointed needle, so 3 sizes up. That way I don't bind off too tight. I really don't like tight bind offs in any project, so I always go up a few sizes to do the bind off. Let me see if I can figure out which side the bind off is. Maybe it's this side? You can kind of tell usually because it's a little, has a little less give maybe. Yeah, this side was the side that was being worked to the end, and this side is the bind off. Much less stretchy, but it's not too tight. So that would be my recommendation when you're binding off, especially if you are maybe a tighter knitter. I don't consider myself a very tight knitter, but bind offs I feel like can get tight just even if you try to make it loose. So that would be my recommendation, is to go up a few needle sizes for your bind off. And I think the only other thing I wanted to say about this is that I have been creating a playlist of wearing shawls. I feel like a lot of times people make things and then afterwards they're like, what am I supposed to do with this? How am I supposed to wear this? And as again, a product maker, when I am looking at a pattern, I will ask myself, how am I going to wear that? What can I see myself wearing it with? Am I going to enjoy the process? Things like that. So before I even start, I know roughly how I'm going to wear it and what I'm going to wear it with, or whatever the case may be. And I know for some people, especially if you are a process maker, you're going into the project to enjoy the process, not necessarily figuring out an outcome for it. And just seeing how somebody wears something or talks about how they are going to wear something can be beneficial. And everybody wears things and uses things differently, and I feel like especially right now when a lot of us are either still staying at home or not interacting with a lot of people, you don't see things like out in the world, right? I feel like we get a lot of inspiration from just walking around or people watching or whatever the case may be, and personally I'm still staying away from people. So yeah, anyway, so I have a playlist here on YouTube titled, I think it's titled Wearing Shawls, and I have a deep triangle shawl on there, a crescent shawl on there, and the half and half triangles wrap. So they are not meant to be like 101 ways to wear your shawl. It is just how I prefer wearing them, some practical tips and tricks on wearing them, and I hope it helps you enjoy your makes even more. Let's go to socks now. I have a pair of socks that I shared, I think as a work in progress in the last episode. It was my husband's Christmas socks. Now, I don't have them on hand with me. I don't recall if they are in a laundry basket or if they're in his dresser drawer, but I will pop a picture of them here on the screen, and I will just briefly say something about them. But yeah, they did get finished, and I used Woolens and Nosh yarn. It was a 90% superwash Targhee, 10% nylon, and I love knitting them. It was so much fun. I used a US 1.5 or 2.5 millimeter, and I knit mine on 9-inch circular needles. And yeah, I ended up using 71 grams total, and so I had plenty of yarn. I wasn't sure if I was going to have enough initially, but I'm not really quite sure why I thought I wouldn't have enough, but I did. It was just fine. He has a 10-inch foot length, 9.5-inch foot circumference, and I usually cast on 64 stitches for socks that I knit him using a US 1.5 needle. So I started with the contrast color. I did a 2x2 rib for 20 rounds, and then for the leg I did about 45-ish rounds. I always knit until that stripe color runs out, like that one finishes up when I'm using self-striping socks. So they may not be like a specific number of rounds. It just kind of depends on when that color ends. And this is for like a stockinette or vanilla sock. If you're doing some sort of patterning, that doesn't really necessarily work as well if you have to have like a center panel or something. But in vanilla or stockinette socks, it doesn't really matter. So then I cut that, put in my contrast heel. I used a shadow wrap heel, and then from there, once I finished, I cut the contrast yarn, rejoined the main yarn, the main self-striping yarn, and then knit. I think I did, let's see, 75 rounds for the foot. And then for the toe, I just continued in my main color. I didn't switch to the contrast color. I just continued with the main color. So I ended up using about 53 grams of the main color, 18 grams of the contrast color, and they turned out great. And they were in his Christmas stocking on time. And I had mentioned earlier that if they weren't done in time, it wouldn't matter, but I did finish them Christmas Eve, and they were in his stocking. So that was exciting. I also have my Advent socks. Now those ones I did not finish for Christmas, and it's fine. I had mentioned online that I was going to have less arbitrary deadlines because they're arbitrary. And so why stress over something that really doesn't need any stressing over? So these are also Woolens and Nosh yarn. This was Michelle's first year doing self-striping Advent socks, and it was so much fun. So there are 24 different colors, 25 including the cream, and they were so much fun to knit up. So I did a pretty wide cuff here. So my cuff is a 2x2, and these I also knit on US 1.5s. I think it was just what I was feeling, and so that's what I did. And I feel like this yarn is very plump, so it kind of worked out. This is also the 90% superwash Targhee, 10% nylon. And I did a 2x2 rib for, let's see, 24 rounds, and I cast on 56 stitches. I wear US 7 shoe, and my foot circumference is 8 inches, and my foot length is 9.25 inches. Then I knit the leg for as long as I wanted to, which in this case was 80 rounds. And I put in my contrast color, which was this cream, which was the same cream as in between. I don't know if it's bare. My guess is it is, but I don't know for sure. So undyed yarn. Did my shadow wrap heel, and then rejoined my main color and kept going until I had the foot length that I needed. I don't know if I did 64 rounds in the foot with the main color. And then when I reached the top of my pinky toe, I cut the main color, rejoined the contrast color, and did a very short toe there. So I love how these turned out. They're beautiful. They are nice and long, just like I like to wear over black leggings. I haven't tried them in my boots yet, but I think the cuff should peek out a little bit just based on other socks that I've knit about this length. Yeah, and I really like that. Her colors are so beautiful. I'm going to try to hold it up a little closer and slowly kind of go down to show you the colors. I ended up using, I think 79 grams total for the main color and the contrast together. My main color I used about 58 grams, and then my contrast color I used about 21 grams. So I do have a tiny bit remaining, and what I am thinking of doing is either making, let me see, so with my main color I have about 20 grams left, which is actually just enough for me to make a pair of child-size fingerless mitts, and since the yarn is already divided in two, I think that will be super cute and my kids will love it. So it'll just depend on which kid I make it for. And then the thumb, I have I think 4 grams of the cream left, so I will just knit the thumb parts in the cream. So I think they'll be super cute. So I'm not sure when I'll do that yet, but at some point. This finished project is kind of a finished project. Well, it is a finished project, but then I had to mend something, so a mending project, I guess. And these are my Forest Trail socks, and this pattern I tested for Natasha of Northern Knits and Purl. I love these cozy socks. So this is a non-superwash yarn held with mohair, and it is a DK weight pattern. And what I noticed is, yes, it's super light and super cozy. I don't know why I have it on my hand. Super cozy. But because the mohair, like the fuzz, fills in the gaps to make it DK weight, but it doesn't actually make my fabric very dense. And with socks, there's a lot of friction, and some areas have more friction than others. And so I feel like because it's not as dense, it can wear out quicker, especially since I used a non-superwash yarn. I used the Retrozaria Pomar Mondim. I don't know if I said that in the right order. The Mondim yarn. And so I've worn these in hiking boots. I've worn them a ton at home, and they actually wore through. So the silk in the mohair saved the hole, I guess, from completely just opening up. And that's the purpose of me using mohair on these, was because the silk acts as kind of a natural nylon. So I will show you here. This one has not gone through yet, but is going to, and so I will proactively mend this part just to strengthen it. I'm going to hold it up real close. So my hand is in here, and you can see where it is wearing out. So it's much lighter there, and you can see my hand through it. Now on the other one that I've mended, here's my beautiful patch. So when I mended it, I did use a yarn that has nylon in it, which will also just provide more reinforcement in that area. Now the way I did it, I do not have a mending mushroom, which some people have. It's like a wooden mushroom that you stick in your sock, and then you can kind of put, I don't know if you put a rubber band over it or it's just how you can hold it. Some people use a darning egg for the same idea. I don't have either of those, so I just stuck the spoon inside and then kind of stretch the sock out over it, because if I don't stretch it out, then my mending area just won't have any stretch to it, right? So I needed to stretch it out so that I could see the stitches and make sure there was some give. Now the way I did this is I used my yarn and went around in a square around the part that was wearing out, and to give a few stitches on any of the sides, and then I went in and just did kind of all one direction, and then went back and kind of wove up and down in the other direction. I don't have any specific name or method or whatever, because I don't know what that's called, but there are lots of mending tutorials out there and books and stuff. So I will pop a link in the description box below of a book that I am meaning to get, and I'll pop it here on the screen. I can't remember exactly what it's called right now. Something to do with mending though, and I will pop that here on the screen. And that's a book I've been meaning to get, and yeah, so maybe you have it and you recommend it. If you do have it and recommend it, I would love to hear your thoughts on it below, or if you have other things that you recommend, that would be great. Otherwise, I just kind of do it however way I see works, and that works for me. So that is one mended sock, and then I will mend the other one proactively so that I don't end up wearing a hole through those. On to works in progress. The first one I'd like to share with you, we'll just keep going with the socks, is in a beautiful project bag by Morgan of Knitting Nelly. I adore this little bag so much. I feel like this cottage thing is kind of Morgan's signature. I mean, maybe it's not her signature one, but when I see this, I think of Morgan. The colors, the pattern, or do you call it a pattern? The design of it, maybe. And look at the little chipmunk wearing earmuffs in the window. Oh, I just adore this. So, in this little sock project bag, I have a pair of socks going. I cast these on Christmas Day. They were my Christmas cast on. And I am knitting DK Weight socks, the High Desert Socks pattern by Lindsay of Larkspur Knits. I have knit this pattern so many times, and by so many times I mean like maybe 10 or 11 renditions of this pattern, and yeah, I just really love it. It is knit on US 3 or 3.25 millimeter needles. I do use 9-inch circulars, and for the heel flap and gusset I switched to not the gusset part, sorry, just the heel flap and the heel turn part, I use double pointed needles. So I'll have the instep stitches held on the 9-inch circulars, and then I work the heel flap on double pointed needles. It's just how I like to do it. And this one I modified a little bit by having a much longer cuff and a much longer leg. It looks super narrow right now, only because there is some ribbing on it, and it does stretch out bigger. And the yarns that I'm using are from my Yarn Advent, dyed by River of a Knitter's Homestead. And her yarns are just so beautiful. This main color is a mauvey pink with silver stellina. And there's some blue speckling in it. And then for the contrast colors, I'm using 2 minis from the Advent as well. So the mauvey pink, that one was I think her Christmas Day yarn, and then this navy has bronze stellina in it, and that one was called Shiny Kettle. And my second contrast color is kind of a tonal ochre, an ochre brown color, and that one was called Gingerbread. So I love how this is coming to life. I am on the foot section now. They're both at about the same spot. I like to knit my socks 2 at a time on their own needles. And so this one here is a little bit farther along than the other one, so then I'll just catch up on this one. So like, let's say I want to do 10 rounds a day, maybe I do 10 rounds on one, and the next day do 10 rounds on the other one. And I have the main yarn here split into 2, and then I'm just pulling from the inside and outside. I am getting a little bit wobbly here, more wobbly than I like, because I usually like to pull from the outside, only because it just gets a little bit too messy for me. So if it gets to be where I can't keep going like this and it's going to kind of fall apart, I might just cut the inside yarn and then rewind it. Yeah, we'll have to see. It might be tricky to wind this on the winder because there's not as much left, but we'll see how far I can go with that. So yes, I'm very excited about wearing these socks in my boots, and I love the color so much. I think I have, here are the contrast colors you can see. Here's the Shiny Kettle. See if the sun can catch the bronze stellina in there. It is a beautiful dark navy with the bronze stellina. Oh, I love it. And then this is the Gingerbread, the tonal ochre brown. And this one is a 2-ply Blueface Leicester nylon fiber content. And the Stellina ones, I believe she said, are merino nylon. Also 2-ply. So I think that's it that I have to say about these socks. Okay, we're gonna go on to my third half and half triangles wrap. Now this one, I am doing the same as far as cast on and everything goes as my second one was, so 230 stitch cast on for more of a medium size, even though it blocks out to closer to what the large size dimensions are in the pattern. And for this one, I'm calling it Golden Hour. And I cast this one on either New Year's Day or New Year's Eve. And you'll see why it's called Golden Hour. My two colors are Honey Pink. And this is kind of a, I don't know how to describe this honey pink color. It's like a warm beigey pink. I mean, there's barely, like the pink is barely there. When you see it in person up close, there are sections that are slightly pinker, but if I looked at this at first glance, I would not call it a pink. Let's see if the camera will catch any of the pinker sections. I'm going to slowly turn it and hope that it catches some of it. And I'm holding this with turmeric yellow. And this turmeric yellow is turmeric colored. It's a very golden yellow, very saturated. So together, this is my Golden Hour half and half triangles wrap. I have started it. Here is the honey pink caked up. And here's the beginning of it. I am mid-row here. It's not a ton to see. It's a garter wrap. And you cast on all your stitches in the beginning and you work short rows to do all of the shaping into 2 triangles. So your first color will be half of it in 1 triangle, and then you work the second half. I do talk about this in detail in a previous episode, so if that's something you're interested in, I'll link to it in one of the corners here. But yeah, it's a pattern that I highly enjoy as a meditative knit that I don't have to think much about. I can work on it while playing board games with the kids or while we're reading at night. Like the kids are reading and they need help with hard words or things like that, and it's something that I can always have going without specific deadlines, without having to stop and count like lace or look up a method or anything like that. It's reliable? Is that a good word? I don't know. I feel like it's a reliable, relaxing, meditative, and also practical as an end result make for me. In the past, I've said I am not a blanket knitter, and I laugh because it's pretty much big enough to use kind of like a lap blanket, but it's still so wearable as a shawl. And I guess shawls are kind of like wearable blankets, right? I mean, depending on the size and shape and things like that. But yeah, it's just something that I really enjoy. And I feel like I've said this every time, but I just want people also to know that just because a bunch of people like it doesn't mean you have to like it. Some people Some people love knitting lace or brioche and find that relaxing. I personally do not. Yeah, so like even if a lot of people say, hey, this is the best thing ever, just because you don't think it's the best thing ever doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. You just don't think it's the best thing ever, and that's okay. So I just feel like I have to put that plug in for things that people feel like they have to make because everybody else is making it. I just don't feel that way about anything. I guess I'm also somebody that never, is it feels or gets? I don't really know how to use it. FOMO, fear of missing out. It's just like not my thing. My kids, on the other hand, and maybe it's a kid thing or a personality thing, I feel like it's different. Like they definitely have fear of missing out. And I don't know, I don't want to say I just don't care, because that seems really crude sounding. I don't know. It's just not my, I don't know. I just have no worry about fear of missing out for anything. Like, I don't know. Okay, last one. If you are still here, thank you for sticking around. If you are watching this in pieces, thank you for watching it in pieces. Yeah, I guess I'm feeling very chatty today, and I hope I haven't like ramped up my speed in talking, because in the beginning I did say I was going to try to slow down. Yeah, I don't know if I continued that or not. Okay, this is a test knit that I am really excited about. It is in a project bag that I made, I wouldn't say specifically for this test knit, but I mean, I kind of made it with it in mind, and I will obviously use it for other things, other other makes as well. But I've been knitting a lot of sweaters lately, this last year and probably this year too, and so I just wanted to have some roomier, large tote style bags. Although maybe I'll make these straps slightly shorter. I did want my straps to be long enough that I could easily throw it over my shoulder, because one day, you know, I'll go places and want to bring my stuff with me, right? Yeah, maybe this is fine. I was thinking if I just did it like 1 inch shorter, but I guess I don't really want it up in my armpit, so scratch that. I'm gonna keep them the same length. Anyway, I like to have little pockets inside, so I sew in these canvas pockets, and I have embroidery separating the pockets, which is really, really fun. Let's see if I can hold it up there closer. It's just kind of a fun detail. So, in this project bag, I have my coloring book raglan. I am testing this for Amy of Amy Sure Makes, and I'm so excited about it. So I am using Knit Picks Wool of the Andes worsted, and this comes in 110 yards for 50 grams. The nice thing about having yarns come in 50 grams is that you can purchase more closely to the yardage that you need versus, you know, always having to buy 100 grams, which means you can also have some cost savings because you're not buying extra. This yarn was also very price friendly, and I also bought it on sale. Regular price is $3.79 for 50 grams, and that's in US dollars. So it is already, I feel like, budget friendly, and then I bought it on sale. So having a sweater's quantity at that price is awesome. So here it is. Are you ready? Dun, 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 dun. Oh, I love it! So I like to put a stitch marker or progress keeper on the front just to keep track of where the front is. I love the short row shaping on this one. The back is nice and high. You still have a crew neck, but it's also not like right up to your neck on the front, and I really like that. I have not tried it on yet, but I'm really looking forward to doing that. I have my sleeve stitches on holders. I like to put them on 16-inch cables, so they have stoppers on the bottom. The colors I am using are Mink Heather, which is this kind of like warm taupey gray-brown. And then my contrast color is Cloud, which is more of like a undyed look. It's just kind of a cream color. And I don't know what else to say. I love it. I'm on the body section. She has 2 views, so 2 different options, except it's not really just 2 options. Like you can mix and match. And I'm testing view B, which has the striping a little bit different from view A. and you have these stripes in the body section. It will be slightly cropped, probably hit right above my hip bone is my guess. I'm planning on using this as a layering piece. The sleeves go past the elbow, and they're kind of wider sleeves, which I love for a layering piece because I can put long sleeves underneath or short sleeves underneath and not have it be bunchy on my arms. And yeah, I am looking forward to trying this on. I think what I'm going to do, since I have interchangeables, instead of putting these live stitches on waste yarn or scrap yarn to try it on, I will just put it on a longer cable, or I have a, what do you call it, a join, like a cable join. It's like a 1.5, 2-inch piece that can join between two cables, and so I will just join in another cable to make it longer so that I can put it on over my body. Yeah, so I look forward to trying this on, or I could just wait till I get a little bit more of the body done. I don't know, it doesn't matter. I'm just really looking forward to it. As I mentioned before with the non-superwash yarns, it is so light. It does feel drier on my hands, and since my hands are also very dry in the winter, I end up having to use lotion or hand balms to keep my hands from snagging the yarn. So I like to keep a Tuft Woolens hand balm in all of my project bags. So Allie of A Nature's Cozy had mentioned that sage and blackberry was her favorite, or maybe one of her favorites, and so I had to try it, and it does not disappoint. It is so good. I'm gonna hold it up so you can see it. I love it. It's so like fresh smelling without being too fruity. Like, I don't like things too fruity smelling. Maybe the sage helps tone down the fruitiness. But yeah, my fingers get really dry and cracked and catch on things, and yeah, this hand balm is a lifesaver. I like that it doesn't leave a greasy residue on your hands or make it feel like wet or sticky. It just kind of rubs in, and it smells so good. Ooh, can you see the steam? I think watching steam come off a hot beverage is one of my favorite things to do. Maybe not like a hobby for things to do, but like one of those quiet moments. I just really enjoy watching the steam come off a hot beverage. So, I think that is all of the makes that I wanted to share with you today. And it was quite a lot of making. Yeah. To wrap things up, I kind of want to talk about word of the year. I don't have one set, and I have done them in the past. Some of my past words have been connect, listen, be. Last year it was grounded. And this year I've tossed around a few words. One of them being preservation. And preservation as in like preserving my sanity. Preservation of my culture and heritage and traditions. Another word I was thinking of was value. I kind of alluded to that in the beginning as I was talking about worth and value. I also was tossing around the word pause. I feel like so much of the world right now is but so much of it is reaction based. if you think of social media, you have likes and there's, what is that phrase? Not attention currency. That's not the word I was thinking of. It's like what grabs your attention, right? Like everybody seems to be competing for attention. It's so strange. It is very strange. I mean, I don't feel that way, but I feel like that is what reaction buttons are gearing people to be attention seeking and valuing your worth and words based on reaction buttons. Like, I don't know, I just feel like that's very strange, because when you're walking around like life outside of the digital world, and I hesitate to say real life, I don't like saying real life because a lot of digital presence is also very real. But yes, when you're walking around in person, surrounded by people and things, it isn't like you're sticking Post-its on stuff saying like, dislike, love, whatever. You may be thinking of things in your head, but it isn't like you just stick a like on somebody's outfit and like keep walking, right? I just feel like the interaction through reactions, but fleeting reactions, not conversation reactions. I don't know. It's just kind of strange. So, where was I going with that? I was talking about the word pause, I think. And pause being giving thought to more than just a reaction. And this is not downplaying your feelings or gut reactions or anything like that. It is more so talking about pausing and sitting with that reaction and then deciding whether to do something about it or not. And also pausing, maybe for like a specific example, maybe pausing when I feel super frustrated about something, and instead of just, I don't know, instead of potentially sending out a zinger or yelling or, I don't know, there's a bunch of other ways to react, but pausing to think about it and decide maybe which way is the most constructive, or I don't know, the best way to react in a particular situation. Not just reacting. I don't know. Anyway, these words are things that I am thinking about. I haven't decided on one word. I don't even have to decide on one word. Again, it doesn't matter. Going back to like arbitrary deadline type of things, it really doesn't matter. I do like setting a word as an intention for the year to kind of ground myself, but I don't have to lock myself in to anything. So whether or not I choose one word, I don't know. Whether I feel like I want to share my final word on here, I don't know. We shall see. Do you pick a word for your year? Yeah, I've been doing it for maybe 5 years now, and I do really enjoy it. And when I plan out my planner journal type of thing for the year, I usually leave at least a page or two in the beginning to kind of jot stuff down. I like to use a dot journal, a dot notebook, and that way I can fill it in the way I want to, that has less waste, and I use up, at least the way I did it this last year, I used up most of the pages, which made me feel really good. There wasn't waste, and the method just kind of worked out for me. If that is something you think you'd be interested in seeing, since I just started my year 2022, I would be happy to share how I organize that and how I kind of map out my pages. Yeah, yeah, I'll just make like a separate video for something like that. If that is something you're interested in, please let me know in the comments below, or message me on Instagram if public commenting isn't your thing. Yeah, let me know. This just a side random thing is my hair has been up and down throughout this episode. I have a lot of hair. My last haircut was February 2020, right before everything shut down. And at that appointment, I donated, I think it was 10 inches of hair. So I had it cut pretty much up to my like collarbone. And my hair naturally kind of like bounces in a little bit instead of, like, my hair is pretty straight, but most of the time I have it in a bun, and when I take it out, there is some curl to it. My mom's hair, when it was long, she always keeps it short now, but when it was long, it had a little bit of a wave to it, a natural wave to it. And both my mom and I have hair that's really, really dark, but not black. It's like dark brown, and it's just naturally that way. And yeah, anyway, I don't know why I was going into details about that, but the last time I had my hair cut was February 2020, and I donated 10 inches at that point, and I was going to do it again this month in January or February, but the pandemic is kind of throwing a wrench into things still, and I had an appointment scheduled for next week, but I bumped it back to March, and we'll just kind of see where things are at that point. I mean, I just don't feel comfortable going in and being surrounded by people indoors with someone that close to my face cutting my hair. So I will just wait. My hair is doing just fine. When I go in to have it cut, I always tell the hairstylist to cut it in a way that's very low maintenance. The most I do to my hair is blow dry it. I do blow dry it because I wash my hair at night, and I do not like sleeping with a wet head. So I just can't sleep when my hair is wet. So I always blow dry it, not to style it, but blow dry it to have it be dry. And yeah, I just let them know that I will not be coming in very often, so please cut it in a way that it grows out nicely. And so far it's been working great. Yeah, so that's a random side tangent. I was going to share with you some cookbooks that I've been enjoying of late, but this episode is getting so long that I feel like I should just save that for a future episode, maybe. I love cookbooks. Cookbooks for me have to have photographs. If there's kind of a little short snippet story type of thing that goes with a recipe, great. And I do have some recipes that I just go to over and over again, but yeah, I love cookbooks. If you like cookbooks, let me know what's your favorite. I could never pick one favorite because there's different types and cuisines and things like that, so I could never pick one favorite cookbook, but I do have a lot of go-tos. Well, anyway, I think that's it. I think that is it for today. I really do hope that you are doing well, taking care, staying safe. We could go on and on about that, couldn't we? So with that, cheers to being creative, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.